Right. I want to do quickly because we didn't get to it in the Peacock hour. Let's talk about this Tucker Carlson responding. So Tucker Carlson, he wants his viewers to know that he can do two things at once. So he can prioritizes. I would say at least he prioritizes in this instance one of those two things: Fox News' central tenet of misogyny over just bashing the Democratic Party at will, because it's probably a bit more salient than going after an already disgraced politician, Andrew Cuomo. Let's see how he manages to juggle these two things when he goes after Lindsay Boylan, one of the accusers in basically proven victims of and survivors of the sexual harassment by Cuomo. Here's Tucker's take.
I really mean it.
He's the gold standard. He's doing a great job. He's a friend. I really mean it. And you know, they all meant it until just about, in fact, precisely December of 2020. That's when a candidate for Manhattan Bureau President, a woman called Lindsay Boylan, wrote a Twitter thread that accused Andrew Cuomo of, quote, harassing her. Sex harassment. The crime, according to Boylan, occurred more than 2 years earlier in 2018, but we hadn't heard about it. So here's the first question. Why did Lindsay Boylan wait 2 years to tell us what had happened? This guy is the governor of one of the most important states in the country. So why didn't she pipe up before, say, before the Emmy Awards? Now, we can't know the answer to that, but it's clear that she picked a politically significant moment to share her allegations on Twitter. Lindsay Boylan went public almost immediately after the news media called the presidential race for Joe Biden. Oh, could it be that the second that call was made, Andrew Cuomo had outlived his usefulness, and it might be time to crush him and move on to someone who's easier to control? Now, if you think that's a conspiracy theory, you don't live in New York, where that kind of thinking is common. The state of New York has a long history of palace coups, and many of them a disturbingly long.
Okay, well, the point is that what usefulness did Cuomo have to the Biden campaign? I would imagine that he had very little, especially as these nursing home numbers continued to become more prominent and discussed by the media. And yes, it is a conspiracy theory. Lindsay Boylan came out with these allegations as there was more pressure mounting on Cuomo when it came to this investigation with the nursing homes. And perhaps she felt a little bit safer to speak her truth when she knew that she wouldn't be entirely crushed by the bully that is Andrew Cuomo, who has waged scorched earth campaign after scorched earth campaign against lone people who have spoke up against him in his 11-year tenure as governor. She spoke out when she felt like she had the support after the Me Too movement had culminated, after Andrew Cuomo wasn't seen as this savior and didn't have all the political allies just buttressing him and making sure that no matter what happened, he would be able to bully his way out of something. That's the political reality. And then he draws this conclusion that taking down Andrew Cuomo would somehow hurt Joe Biden in the blue state that is New York. Was Biden campaigning with Cuomo alongside him? Was Cuomo his a part of his campaign? Was he his VP? No, there's no relevance to Biden's presidential ambitions whatsoever, except for the one that Tucker is deciding to draw.
Tucker is one of those guys who thought that Andrew Cuomo was going to jump in and tag Joe Biden out and take his place as the Democratic nominee. So it is quite hilarious that all of a sudden the real goal was to always get Joe Biden in so they could have someone to control. When previously he was saying, obviously Joe Biden's not fit for this. They're going to bring in Andrew Cuomo, who he thought was fit for the job.
Yeah, that went a weird place that I wasn't quite expecting. I thought he was just going to use like this whole thing to, further delegitimize the, Me Too movement and like the sort of bog standard stuff. But he's been going down a way more convoluted path recently with a lot of these sort of, twisting conspiracies type stuff. I think in reality, asking why, there's a confluence of reasons. They were getting ready to slap C on the end of LGBTQ to make Cuomo sexual with things. So I could imagine you'd feel, bitter or petty or any number of negative feelings about that. I personally don't necessarily agree with investigating why somebody felt at what time they came forward, why like it was expedient, especially when the person in the aftermath of them coming forward proved why they were waiting in the first place. You know, we in the aftermath of Cuomo resigning, or in the aftermath of this investigation, rather, saw the kind of web of allies Cuomo built that were entirely, you know, willing to engage in, like Emma said, smear campaigns, personal, wage personal wars against people coming out despite being part of, you know, legitimate liberal seeming feminist organizations like Time's Out or whatever. I'm sorry, Time's Up. So, I mean, the reason why people wait is self-evident. Continuing to question it as though we haven't seen that these institutions exist despite their ostensible goal to prop up power is, you know, more or less ridiculous. I also disagree that the lieutenant governor is probably going to be better than him about any of the number of other issues that like were leading to his investigations becoming more prominent in terms of the nursing home thing, but also to believe that she wasn't culpable and like this sort of culture of toxicity under him is just completely unbelievable. I
mean, Cuomo is the guy who we now know had called, I believe, the Obama administration towards the end of the second term, trying to get Preet Bharara fired as the New York AG. Of course, Trump ended up also having a problem with Bharara and getting him and actually relieving him of his duties. But, you know, Cuomo would go that high because someone was investigating why he would close his organization that he put together to investigate corruption in New York. Once they started to look into him, his commission, I should say. So, I mean, this is a guy who was very, he had a history of going after people who crossed him. And so maybe she didn't want to deal with that. I mean, it doesn't, I mean, people wait for all sorts of reasons. The mystery of why she would wait to come out against Cuomo is the least surprising I could ever think of, to be quite frank.
Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.